Cooper family today. It's a pleasure to meet you all. But if you're thinking this speech is getting a bit boring, a bit too serious, then I better change gear. And at this point, Martin, you might well start to worry that I'm not going to live up to your expectations. Now, what were they, I wonder? You told me several times that all I had to say was, well, he brushes up well. So I suspect you thought that I'd be a safe choice today. After all, I'm nearly 10 years older than you, although I think I have more hair. Now, this age difference means that I haven't always been around to witness Martin's more embarrassing moments. So this means you think that I probably haven't got the information that I need for a speech like this. So think again. And here I'd like to thank Martin's loyal and loving partner Andrew for sneaking into Martin's mobile phone one night when he was in the bar and taking out some telephone numbers that I needed to prepare for this speech. And I also need to thank some of Martin's dearest friends, who, when I called them on the numbers that Andrew so duplicitously provided, were only too willing to push the dirt. Martin, how potentially foolish you were. You sorted out the order of speeches, you decided to speak before me, so you leave yourself no chance of comeback. I see the concern on your face at the moment, because was it such a good idea to allow Adrian to speak after you? Before you worry too much, Martin, either your very worst secrets are safe with your friends, or you really are, at least for the most part, the fine fellow that I described a moment ago. But what can I say? Well, first, it was always clear that Martin was destined to make his mark. He's the only baby that I've ever heard of who in the middle of one night shook his cot to pieces. And who, after an almighty crash, was found by our somewhat shocked parents sitting amongst its ruins, looking very pleased with itself. Now, thank goodness the social services never came to visit, because they never saw how Martin had thereafter to be restrained. They didn't witness the rebuilt cot. It was nailed to the floor and to the wall, and it had to be tied down with guy ropes like a tent in a gale. Only that way Martin's energy be kept in check. Now, this early but apparent desire to be the centre of attention is something that Martin's friends still comment on. Now, of course, I only know Martin as a very sober individual. But I have this week heard tales of a drunken, solo, synchronised dance in a club. Apparently it went on for hours. Perhaps the most embarrassing bit of it all, it was all to 80s music. I've also heard stories of a truth or dare game, which left Martin standing in someone's back garden wearing only his underpants. That said, this second story, at least, in a sort of funny way, shows what a good and loyal friend Martin is, because the way that I heard it was that he was standing there in support of another friend, whose dare it was to stand outside, bare above the waist, but for her bra. Now, as the lady is present, I can't tell you her name, but I can tell you that she's officially flashing about. So this desire to help a friend, which, as we've seen, stretches to a willingness to go almost naked in public. This really is something that all your friends talk about, Martin. But they say he's a great guy, the sweetest, most thoughtful people. He'd do anything for anybody. And no matter what, Martin will always help you out. These were comments that reflected the most common theme. But your friends are only loyal to a point. There were a lot of comments about your tendency to be a drama queen. Suggestions you never ever lost the opportunity to make a mountain out of a molehill. And that even though our dance catchphrase, used for nearly 20 years, even when the ship was sinking, it's not a crisis. Despite that, you like a good drama to get your teeth into. Now, there are probably many of us here who have been unlucky enough to be in a minor car accident. Martin has. But only Martin could divert the focus manager from opening the store as a result. Only Martin could bring the whole of Harrogate to a standstill. And only Martin could turn out what was, let's face it, a pretty minor accident into a national incident that was covered on Radio 2. All I can say, Martin, is thank goodness that at least on that occasion you were not wearing the ridiculous health and safety get-up that you apparently insist on wearing to unload Christmas trees from a lorry. Angie, over there in the corner, has the photograph. But I did learn something very useful from all these talks with your friends, Martin, and thank you, Maxine, in this case. There is apparently a way to bring you back down to earth at these moments of manufactured crisis. Now you might think, ladies and gentlemen, that would just be a quick slap round the face. But it's a bit more subtle than that, well just. It all stems from the heady days of that pop group of all pop groups, S Club 7. Their version of the Bee Gees tragedy. Now, thanks to YouTube, I did a quick bit of research the other day, and then I saw the song in question. So I was very glad that Adrian and I had agreed earlier this week that neither of us would sing during our speeches. You probably did that too, actually. Anyway, for those of you looking to calm Martin down in future, and Andrew, you should definitely take note here, Maxine advises me that all is required, if you can bring yourself to do it, and I will try, is a quick impression of S Club 7. With the choreographed, and I do use that term loosely, moves from the song. So Martin, if all this has left you a bit stressed, let me calm you down and say, if you lose control and you've got no soul, it's tragedy. Ladies and gentlemen, there's been mentions of 80s music, Unity, and now S Club 7, so I feel that this speech has slipped far enough down the slippery slope. But perhaps you, I'm sure this applies at least to my parents if nobody else, now know a little more about one of today's groups. And I, for one, am looking forward to finding out about the other. Let me come back to where I started. You'll remember how proud and pleased I am today. Well, the final reason is I'm very proud and very pleased to ask you to stand and to take your glasses. Now, mine will not be the only toast to our dashing grooms today. For this one, I ask you to drink deep and to thank Martin and Andrew for their generosity in hosting us all today and for asking us to share with them this very special occasion. So to Martin and Andrew, Andrew and Martin.
Martin and Andrew, Andrew and Martin.